Donald Trump hasn't been charged with insurrection, and this is a question for the voters. The reason why it doesn't apply to the president was because the drafters of the 14th Amendment realized that the president is elected by the entire nation, and it should be the entire nation who determines who they want for president, whether they're guilty of insurrection or not.
That is Trump lawyer Christina Bobb, sort of defending Trump. I mean, she's listing some of the arguments there for why some say that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment does not allow for Donald Trump or any president to be taken off the ballot, while also opening up the possibility that he might have committed an insurrection. I would avoid that if I was the lawyer. But anyway, Trump is trying to defend himself from the removal from the ballot that he's experienced in both Colorado and Maine. They have formally, his legal team, formally asked the SCOTUS as of today to overturn Colorado's ruling that barred him from being on the state's primary ballot. Trump in this ruling or in his filing argued that he did not take part in an insurrection, that his eligibility should be determined by Congress, not the courts, and that the insurrectionist ban did not apply to the presidency in any case. Generally in life, when you provide a whole bunch more of excuses for why you shouldn't be responsible for something, it makes you look bad. I understand in this case, they want to cover all their bases. And this follows up that yesterday, they filed an appeal against the ruling of the Democratic Secretary of State of Maine, trying to overturn that ruling as well. All of this is expected. The Supreme Court is going to have to weigh in. The Trump campaign is going to have to get involved as well. Thus far, we still haven't heard anything from the SCOTUS. But Trae, like they're going to have to say something because you cannot have a case where in some states he's been taken off, in others the attempt to take him off has been blocked by a district courts or the appeals court level. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of funny knowing that the SCOTUS has to deal with this because, I mean, I feel like, they're very much in favor of one of their things is like the state should be able to, run their own elections and whatnot. Like the state should be empowered, states' rights, and they should run the elections, all that stuff. But then in this instance, they're thinking like, well, not like that. We didn't mean like that. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. But that wouldn't be the first time that they said one thing and did another. That's why I haven't been, I don't know what to think about what SCOTUS is going to do for that reason, but I don't expect this particular strategy to ultimately bear fruit. I know I'm a bit of a negative Nancy all the time, but I just think that there's, I can't see it amounting to much even if they let it stand because it's going to be in like mostly blue states. I know that Maine splits their electoral votes and that type of thing, but I also worry about what it will inspire the opposition to attempt to do. I know that Biden hasn't done anything insurrection-y. I know that, but I don't think that would stop them from attempting to frame it that way and get him taken off the ballot in Texas or wherever, like God knows. And it just devolves into this whole thing that makes the election even more of a mess than it's already going to be. And also that when let's say Biden wins and all this has managed to stand these cases and stuff, it's just like it's also more ammunition for the narratives that are going to come out after the fact about the underhanded dealings of the left and how the election was stolen from him and it was never fair to begin with and all the arguments they're probably going to make anyway. So I don't know. I had mixed feelings about all this. The last thing else, just to be very clear, though, of course, I believe that based on the things that we all saw him do while, in office and otherwise related to January 6th and whatnot, of course, I believe he's not fit to be president and in a perfect world would not be allowed to run for it. Like I would love it if, it was more explicitly laid out that he couldn't, but the circumstances being what they are, I have mixed feelings about this whole situation,
I think it's fascinating that we, like being progressives or on the left or whatever, we're obviously from the point of view of the right, we're out of our mind with Trump derangement syndrome. But I have not heard, and TYT especially, I mean, oh my God, everybody at TYT has Trump derangement syndrome. Is there anyone on our network who has said, yeah, he should obviously be banned? I'm asking the audience because I know Trae, you weren't on all the shows, but no, like every single one of us says, best case scenario, you could argue it. There's a case to be made, and then even when we talk about the consequences, the sort of practical implementation of it, there's always like the consideration that it would certainly be preferable if it comes down to the voters. I mean, personally, I'm shocked that that's an open question as to how the voters would come out. But again, like just constantly being portrayed as being blindly partisan or tribal seems utterly unfair in this case. But anyway, we are still waiting to find out when the Supreme Court is going to weigh in. I would love it if they would expedite it. I understand that there's a number of different aspects of this, and they are complex. And this is an area where the Supreme Court has never weighed in. And so theoretically, you'd want to have some time to consider it. But I would also say this has sort of been on people's news radar for a couple of weeks because of Colorado. That's not when the trials started. There have been efforts in like 33 states to take him off the ballot. That's been going on for months and months and months. The Supreme Court 100% should have already been on this. They could have gotten out in front of this before Colorado. So like totally slow rolling it, I think is completely unacceptable because this is not something that just came out of nowhere a couple of weeks ago. And the states need to know the elections are coming up soon.
Well, don't you think part of why they've tried to avoid it is because maybe they don't want to set some kind of precedent where states and their elections are concerned, meaning like having the federal government having the ability to weigh in on a state and its election and be like, no, you can't do that. That's not fair, because they may not want that precedent set because of, what they hope some of the states do in the forthcoming election or whatnot. They want the states to be empowered when it comes to their electors and that type of thing. So maybe, and I know in like 2000 in Bush Gore, they like made a judgment, but said explicitly this can't be used as precedent or something, or like this is a one-time thing. This only ever applies this one time and never ever again. Yeah. So I guess there's a precedent. They can not make stuff precedent or something. I don't know. I'm law dumb, but anyway, it is interesting. Waiting to see what they're going to do.
Yeah, look, I would say if, then just say that it doesn't apply to the president or whatever, or do the precedent thing. Or it's also very convenient that in that case, they handed the election to the Republican and then said this can't be used as a precedent theoretically in a case where it would benefit a Democrat. I love that, by the way.
Right.
And also, it's their job. It's a difficult one. I wouldn't necessarily want that responsibility, but I also didn't ask for it. They did. And so they are supposed to be the final ultimate arbiters of the Constitution. So do it. Earn that lifetime paycheck that you've got there. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.